Throughout history, using your head in combat has been one of the most effective ways to beat your opponent. Getting on top, pinning arms down, and headbutting to break someone's nose was used from gladiator times all the way up to recent years with MMA. But most sports ban headbutting, especially in Jiu Jitsu where strikes aren't allowed. What hasn't changed is that using your head offensively and defensively is just as effective as it was back then. So let's see how we can use our head to improve our Jiu Jitsu. Jiu Jitsu matches start on the feet. Well, most of them. But a big problem Jiu Jitsu guys make is that they don't know how to use their head correctly. Sitting ear to ear, having the head too high or too low, and not jutting forward creates issues. From standing, you should have a game plan with your head. Your body can't go anywhere without your head, so you may as well use it as a battering ram. The best example of this is throwing your head into their chest and attacking with either a blast double or a blast single. The reason I'm able to pull off so many guillotines is because I push their head off of my chest. But if you run them over before they touch you, you don't have to worry about it.
Again.
Why? That one hurt kinda.
Putting your head in their chest gives you power, prevents snap-downs, and is done by professional NFL players who know a thing or two about tackling. The main goal to remember when doing these shots is you need to be looking forward and continuing to off-balance them by moving your feet. But the only way to enter into a shot is by controlling the inside position, which again is because of your head. Bad wrestling is when you're standing ear to ear and just stalling, whereas good wrestling, you're always working on the inside angle, stopping their lanes of attack and setting up your own offense. If you're having difficulties clearing the ear to ear, watch this quick example.
I'm gonna bring my hand to the inside and just angle off, like just a tiny bit. But I turn my head, so now my eyes are on her and she's facing away from me. And then here this opens up my attacks.
With your head on the inside, you can finally hit entries to all your favorite takedowns, but it's gotta be used for more than just that. It's also the key element in defending in stand-up. If you're tired of being abused when somebody grabs an underhook on you, guess what? It's time to redirect the pressure and throw your head into their temple. Your head is the #1 wedge you have between your opponent. You can then use your hands and legs to do other actions such as countering. If you want to improve at this, take this common wrestling drill with a partner where you're just defending using only your head as they constantly shoot in on you. Once you understand how to use your head as a wedge and how to use it as a battering ram, you can open up your takedown opportunities to even more attacks that are far more stylish. But the stand-up in Jiu-Jitsu is a small part of the game and we still want to completely demoralize them on the ground. So how can we use our head to destroy our opponent? My #1 goal on the ground is I want to make my head the main point of contact. If I want to pass their guard, smash them with my head. If I'm camping and tiring them out, crushing them with my skull. If they're tired of being underneath you, make them regret that choice. Even when you think the body lock is the most important part of a body lock pass, nope, it's the head. Your head placement is going to completely depend on what move you're doing. For example, the over-under pass you put on their stomach or on their hip. But as a general rule of thumb, the higher you can bring your head, such as going into their chin, the more you can realign their spine. And if your partner tells you he can move without a spine, I'm sorry, that's just not true. Even for passes where you don't engage with your head, such as a toreando, I still choose to put my head in after passing the guard because it makes it that much harder for them to shrimp and escape. Some people choose to use side control with their head not doing anything, and others are constantly driving forward. Which one looks more comfortable? Now, similar to the stand-up, where we're using our head to allow the rest of our body to move, it works the same way on the ground. If I'm pushing forward into their spine, now my arms can move around to start setting up body locks, underhooks, or other attacks, and my legs can start to work around his guard so I can eventually pass it into a stronger position. Also, just listen to how much fun your opponent would have if you're doing it correctly. But as much as I love to use my head offensively and making my partner have just a horrible day, I started this new approach because I wanted to counter them and defend against their attacks. From any of my other videos, a common trend you'll see is I just do not like to battle footlocks, even if I can escape them. A very common time somebody will attack me is when I'm pressure passing and they're going to try and scoop my near side leg. If my head is in the wrong position, they're going to get to it, whether it be through K-guard or single leg X. But if I can monitor the inside space, there's no way their arms can reach around my entire body plus my head just to scoop up my foot. One passing trend that's been popping up a lot more recently is camping, which is sitting in one position where you have an advantage, tiring your opponent out by holding it for a while, and then deciding how you want to advance. And whether you do it like John Danaher with his head on the opposite side, or you do it like me with the head in the chest, you'll see this position is only accomplished with proper head placement. But the fun doesn't end just there. This has all been about trying to pass their guard, and when you actually do pass into something like mount, your head can really make them miserable. Remember how I said the head is used to push against their chin to realign their spine? Well, it's pretty tough to escape mount by shrimping if you can't use your neck. And similar to side control where you don't need to shove your head into them, you will notice a clear pressure difference if you decide to use it or if you don't. And while I show you guys some footage of me smashing people with my head, let me tell you that I've never been one to struggle with style on and off the mats, and you don't need to either. Since X Martial will make you custom rash guards. I mean, just look at mine with the spangled one. How do you think I got something so stylish? This means that you're only limited by your own imagination, which some of you, it might be a little bit weird. And if you want to save 10% on these custom rash guards, don't forget to use code Tyler10. Now, I've shown a lot of footage of how to use your head offensively when you're on top or defensively to stop their movements, but what about on bottom? Your head is still important here, it just doesn't mean you're going to have as many attacks. You need to make sure you always have a good grip over your head. As other people like Jordan Teaches Jiu Jitsu would tell you, if anybody grabs your head, they're going to be setting the pace of the match. So when you're on bottom, it's a lot more important that you decide to keep your head away from them and don't let them grab control of your head or bring your head all the way inside as if you're working towards deep half. The main rule on bottom is we're no longer using our head as the main wedge. Instead, we need to use our arms and legs, because if we bring it too close without a game plan, they're going to grab it and guillotine us. But if we can open up enough avenues, then we can use our head to wrestle up, which if you can't tell has been a really popular trend over the past few years with competitors. Either way, not enough people are using their head when they're prioritizing their jiu-jitsu. You need it so you can create offense and defense while keeping yourself safe at the same time. Jiu-jitsu will always be easier if you're making the correct openings and using your head.